Oh, fractions. You are confusing enough when your numbers are all naked in equations, but then when you put them into situations, sometimes it can be hard to know, am I multiplying with the fraction or am I dividing with the fraction? Let's look at a couple of situational problems and see if we can kind of figure out, well, how do we tell when it's time to multiply versus when it's time to divide with a fraction? So here we find out that a snail crawls 2 yards in 1 hour, speedy snail, and then we're asked two things. Well, how far will it crawl in 3 hours? And then how far will it crawl in 1/4 of an hour? Well, let's take this 3 hours. So we have 2 yards an hour, 3 hours. So that means that in 3 hours we would have 3 groups of 2 yards. So in 3 hours, that snail's going to travel 6 yards. Well, that makes a lot of sense. That's third grade math right there. And then we see, what if it had never said 3 hours, though? What if it had said, how far will it travel in 1/4 of an hour? That's where we might get a little bit confused. But remember, here we talked about 3 groups of 2. Well, here, a 1/4 of an hour is the same kind of situation. Instead of 3 groups of 2, it's 1/4 of 2 that we're dealing with. 1/4 of 2. So how did we know that we had to multiply here? Well, we're realizing that when we multiply, we're telling how many times we're taking a number. How many times are we taking that number? It could be 3 times, or it could be 1/3 or 1/4 times. When we take, say, 1/4 of a number like 2, we're finding 1/4 times the number, right? So that's the thing. How many times are we taking the number? How many times? That's why a lot of times when I talk in multiplication, I don't say 3 times 2, I say 3 groups of 2, 1/4 of 2 instead of 1/4 times 2. Well, and let's finish up that 1/4 times 2. That take us back. Maybe, woo, there we go, that should be a 1. 2/4, and of course 2/4, if we divide the numerator and the denominator by 2, our simplest form means that in a 1/4 of an hour the snail's going to go half of a yard. Woo! Okay. So here's a different scenario. Bob has 2 tons of fertilizer, and he'll move it by barrel. Okay. So a barrel holds 1/8 of a ton. How many barrels is Bob going to need? All right. Now we start out with 2 tons of fertilizer, and it looks like we're going to have to group it into barrels of 1/8 of. 1/8 of. So here it doesn't sound like we're making groups. It sounds like we're taking a whole and we're breaking it into parts. Right? We're putting it into barrels, so we are, that's right, we're going to be dividing it up into eighths. I've got a 2-ton barrel, or 2 tons of fertilizer, and I need to divide it into eighths. How many eighths are in 2? Remember, with division, we're looking at how many of a certain number are inside another number. So, how many of a certain number are inside another number? Okay. Fair enough, fair enough. And from there, I might I might remember, okay, well, if this is the case, then I can do ye old invert and multiply. I can draw out my eighths. Okay, so that's 1 ton. And if I break it into eighths, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 barrels for 1 ton, which of course means, and I can draw it out, or I can just follow that pattern, that the other ton is also going to require another 8 barrels, meaning we're going to need 16 barrels. And the pictures down here kind of give us an idea of, okay, where's the division coming from? How many eighths are inside of 2 whole? Well, there we see it. There we have it. All right. I hope this helped. And don't worry if it's a little tough. Maybe do a little drawing. Maybe stop and think or act out in your head. Visualize what's happening. Are you trying to break things into groups from a larger number? How many of one number's inside another? Or are you trying to figure out how many times you're taking another number? Blank groups of blank. Good luck.